Yeah, painting is probably the most traditional way to be an artist. Like everybody who's not an artist, you tell them I'm an artist and they're like, what do you paint?
Yeah. Also kind of, so you're a painter or what?
What is your favorite work of art of yours?
Oh God.
So today's visit is in the studio of Eeva-Riitta Eerola. And you are a Helsinki-based artist who does painting. Do you do something else, or is it the painting mainly your focus?
Well, yeah, I mainly work with painting, and I'd say that I identify as a painter. But for the past 8 years or so, I've been also collaborating with Jenni as an artist duo, and that has been a kind of like a big change in my artistic practice. That my work's like divided between these two quite different ways of working, but it has been really good and really fruitful.
I was going to ask you later on about this collaboration, because I think most people don't have, or when they do collaborate, it's not on such a long-term basis. It seems like you are having this, like it keeps going, which is great. That, I mean, amazing when you have a person who you can work with on multiple projects. So yeah, how is that?
Well, we kind of have a long history with Jenni. We actually started our studies in the Academy of Fine Arts at the same time in 2004, so more than 20 years ago from now. And at some point during our studies, maybe like when we were finishing our masters, we started to comment more and more of each other practices. And I studied the painting department and Jenni in time and space, and already at the time she was focusing quite a lot on moving image. But I think, like in a quite early stage, we noticed that we have a lot of similar interests, and it felt quite natural to find this common ground and a lot of similarities in our process. So I think even though it took some years to like develop this kind of artist duo practice, but I think like that's part of the reason why it has been so great for us, that we really know each other so well, and we are really close friends, of course, also. So
and you do mostly videos together.
Yeah. Initially, we just wanted to do something really different together. So we did like some kind of sculptures, even though we both didn't quite know how, but it was just kind of like this idea of joining our forces and just to do something really different apart from both of our practices. And we did use some moving image already back then, but it was more of this kind of a different way of approaching it. But we just actually showed our fourth collaborative project, and that was a film work, and the previous one was also a site-specific project, but the main work was a film work. So for some reason, it just kind of like took that turn, and it felt interesting to work together. But like focusing on films.
That's awesome when you find a person you work well with, and the exhibition you're talking about now, it was in the beginning of the year in Sikka Galleria.
Yes.
This is where we very briefly met for the first time.
Yeah, true.
After
the opening,
yeah. But it was so short that it was almost like we didn't. But thank you for now having me here after a few times we were arranging this and something happened.
Yeah.
Couldn't meet.
Sometimes finally here.
Yes. Let's start maybe with the studio space, because it's where we are right now. Your room is how big is it?
It's not very big. It's just about like 22 square meters or so. But we do have some like extra storage space here, so I mean, don't have to worry about that.
It feels pretty spacious because it doesn't have that many works in it, because you have another storage where you keep them.
Yeah. When you arrived, I was just to say that. Okay, so this is like now really authentic post-exhibition kind of state. Yeah. It's actually like today when we are recording it. It's the last day of my exhibition at Helsinki Contemporary. So yeah.
Yes.
So I'm really in the middle of kind of projects.
But I mean, even though 20-something square meters is a pretty good amount, because I've been in many very much smaller spaces, so yeah, it could be smaller.
Yeah, and I think it's just kind of like these practicalities of this occupation. Of course, it would be great to have a bigger studio space, especially when you're working on a bigger exhibition. But yeah, just I've been trying to manage with this space because just like because of the insecurities of the finances. So
Of course, and
I think I also kind of like find it important to have a kind of like familiar studio space or sort of like, so I don't think it wouldn't be so easy for me to have these kind of like project spaces or sort of like so. Like,
you mean your own base? It's important to.
Yeah. It's kind of like I think that's all sort of like yeah.
How long have you been here?
In this space for 6 years actually already. That long.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess I'm stuck.
This is impressive to me because I've been changing studio spaces almost every year.
Oh really?
I don't know what happens. It just happens. Yeah.
But I guess there's like also it can kind of like have good sides also, or sort of like in a way that kind of maybe forces to.
It's definitely kind of like
directions.
it feels like a restart every time. Like a small reboot of your thinking. Yeah. And what is it you like most about this? What has kept you 6 years here?
I guess my colleagues, or sort of our little community here. And I just realized that I was kind of referring, like we have this, so it just comes naturally. But I've been working in the same studio space with Erna Enkenberg and Sami Havia, like almost since we graduated, because we were in the Kuvan kevät, or this final show at the same time, like in Finnish Academy of Fine Arts, and yeah, so we're good friends from like way
Long
back.
time.
Yeah, a long time by now. So and yeah, so I think this is a perfect solution for me. Like that we all have like our own rooms. So kind of like that.
Yeah.
You can close your door and like have your private space, but just like.
But there's another person there.
Yeah. You're having these dear colleagues and friends, like just next door, so can share thoughts and of course, like if you want to have comments or just
That's
like
pretty ideal
change
to
ideas.
find this kind of an environment.
Yeah.
Do you have like a common space where you can all gather, or do you just open the door and gather?
Well, we have like a small kitchen space to have lunch together and that kind of like a shared space too. So yeah, so that's really good.
Yeah, I recently came to the realization that if there could be like many studios on the same floor, but if there isn't this common space, how are people even going to meet? It just won't happen.
Yeah, true.
So yeah, I didn't think about it before, but it just hit me.
Yeah, and I think also like in this kind of like bigger artist studio buildings, like when there's so many studios, so then it's also like, I don't have personal experience from that, so I can't really tell, but but maybe it's also like not so easy to find those like your own circles.
Yeah, there always has to be somebody to start this interaction there. If there isn't this person to organize event or something, it's really tough.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So
not that I've been in those places with many. Maybe that's why I've been switching so much, because I've been looking for this and I haven't found it yet.
Yeah, really, that's kind of yeah. yeah, what do you, it's kind of, what was your question? Just, like what has kept me, like, so really, yeah, that's kind of, like that I think I'm being more willing to deal with the little space and stuff like that, but just I've been valuing so much of like this kind of good atmosphere here and like really this kind of shared like work community.
Have you had a shared space, like the room itself, with other people?
Yeah, kind of like the first studio after school, and of course, like during studies too. But yeah, my first studio space was that kind of like bigger hall that was divided with like with these kind of movable walls, and then of course it's good to have that experience too. Worked fine, but yeah, but I do have to say that now, I've been working in my own room for so long, so maybe it wouldn't be so easy anymore to change to that kind of setting.
Yeah, I guess. Although I don't know, I've been both sharing and I've been alone, and I have to say I probably prefer to have another person in the room if there would be some person instead of just being alone all the time. But maybe this would be actually better if you have your own room and there are other people behind, like in their own rooms. I don't know. Let's go back to your past beginnings of before you were even an artist. Like, did you know you would be an artist one day when you were a kid?
No. In my case, it took quite a while to kind of pursue, like being an artist myself. I think, more or less, I was this kind of, like the classical artistic kid, like always drawing and having this really strong imagination and inner world. My first ideas were something related to sort of like creative field, but more like design or theoretical studies. And I studied art history before starting in the Academy of Fine Arts. So I guess I had to make a bit of a detours before really kind of having some sort of a clear vision that I want to try to become an artist myself. But like maybe it was also partly because in my family we didn't have kind of like I didn't have any
artist uncles and
yeah, exactly. And I grew up in eastern Finland, or like in Siilimjärvi, which is next to Kuopio. Or I'm kind of like from this like doctor family or sort of yeah, like I said, like didn't have that kind of example of doing something so different than being an artist. But my family was kind of really interested in culture, and I was kind of taken to exhibitions like from early age, and that was kind of a familiar world in that sense. But yeah.
But not the practical side of it so much.
No. Yeah, and of course maybe I don't know if I had grown up in Helsinki or sort of like had maybe more options for kind of like art schools or hobbies or so maybe that kind of like would have changed the story a bit, but it's just yeah.
I'm sure that not every child of an artist becomes an artist, of course.
Many of my friends who have kids, like are saying kind of, like, like luckily their kid is much more sensible. They are, like that. Like yeah. He or she wants to be something completely different.
But your parents were not like very shocked when you told them you want to be an artist, or were they?
Well, no. Well, actually, my dad passed away, like when I was a kid. But my mom, yeah, she supported me, or maybe she was kind of like that. Well, maybe it's a tough choice, but of course, like if
you're good with it.
Yeah, if yeah, or she was wise enough, like to kind of course realize that I have to at least give it a try.
When we mentioned your exhibition in Helsinki Contemporary that it just ended, I saw, because I get their newsletter, that you had like an artist talk yesterday, or you were present in the gallery for.
Yeah, we were kind of thinking of, you know, like whether to have an artist talk this time, but no,
It was just
decided to have
just-
just kind of, you know, like this kind of artist meeting. Yeah.
How do you feel about those usually? How do you have often these kinds of direct meetings with the audience?
Well, I think, you know, like it's well, definitely mostly it's really nice. Just it is really nice because the core of the work is so solitaire in a way, or sort of, you know, like you're so on your own in your kind of own world, and then, you know, like when the exhibition is out there, of course it kind of, you know, like also, yeah, that's a different stage for the works too. So I think it's really nice to hear viewers' comments and personal approaches to works. And I think, you know, like, in a way, it doesn't have, you know, like, in my experience, it's also, you know, like that maybe, I don't know, things are so shy or so that, you know, like, even though you're present in the exhibition, you know, like, not everyone is really interested of like sharing their experiences. So but I think it's, yeah, I've definitely had really good conversations with viewers. So, and yeah, because
I mean,
it can be really enlightening to hear, you know, like that. Oh, okay, I've never thought of, you know, like,
yeah, you
seeing
get different
that
perspectives
way. Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
I have to say that I have been to some event like that when the artist is present, and sometimes even I get this like a bit intimidated to go and approach them for some weird reason. And maybe not anymore now with this podcast. I've become a bit more like. But before it's a bit of a threshold, weirdly. Although it shouldn't be. Like, why? What's the? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how do you feel as an artist, or sort of, you know, like, have you had these kind of events or so?
I haven't had them that much, honestly. Some of the exhibitions I've had in Finland have been during the COVID. So there was absolutely no such event.
Yeah.
Barely an opening or something like that.
Yeah.
And before that, I've had exhibitions in Sofia, where this was not really a thing. I think nowadays it's more common, but before it wasn't really. Like, I don't know why. I was supposed to have one artist talk very, very early on when I was started exhibiting, and I was so nervous. I was just so horrible. Because I think maybe in Finland they teach you how to do that in the academy or in the university, or at least a little bit more. You learn how
nowadays.
Nowadays, yeah, how to talk about your art. But when I was studying, that was not the case. So it's another skill you need to learn altogether.
Absolutely, yeah. Because I feel the same, that, you know, like, when I was studying, that really wasn't the case. And I remember I did this one like summer exchange. It was in Germany, and they were art students, you know, like from all around the world. And that was kind of, you know, like, kind of really a clear example of, you know, like, of course, especially Americans were so good at presenting their works, because, you know, like, we had like this kind of get together like every morning and talking about our ideas and so, and I really felt that, oh God, I'm so kind of, you know, like, behind all of the others of just having this kind of natural ability to you know, present and verbalize your way of working. So
yeah, because it's very connected also to yourself as a person, and then it feels so, you know, exposing maybe somehow. Well, speaking of this, what is your work about? as we are here, anyways. What are the main themes in your work?
Even after all these years, you know, like, there's this kind of, you know, like, this red thread or kind of, you know, like, the core themes of my practice are this attempt to exploring like how we read images, or sort of this kind of questions of perceptions, and also like the medium itself, like the painting is really kind of big questions that just kind of keeps interesting me, you know, like what is kind of like really in the essence of painting, and what are the kind of how to work with it in a way that is something that you can only do with painting.
Yeah, painting is probably the most traditional way to be an artist. Like everybody who's not an artist, you tell them I'm an artist, and they're like, "What do you paint?"
Yeah. It's kind of so you're a painter or what? Or yeah, that's true.
But at the same time, painting is difficult because, especially nowadays, it's so easy to produce an image in many other ways. So it's tricky.
Yeah, and of course there's also this kind of burden. you could say maybe like burden of tradition, but I think it's also really interesting of just, you know, like how you find your own relation to that tradition. I'm really kind of, you know, like I also like quite consciously use art history as a reference point in my work, but still it's really important to do that from like today, or sort of, you know, like so that it's like relevant in today's perspective. It's true. It's really, it's kind of a complex.
Yeah, the painting, like it seems easy to be a painter because, you know, there's so many. Like it's like an ocean of how to teach you how to paint. But then it's so difficult because then you have to choose what you need, what you want to paint, and why you want to paint that. And your paintings are very interesting balance between the abstract and the concrete. Some of them more abstract, some of them a little bit more. You can see a figure there. It's curious how you developed your visual language to the way it is today.
Yeah, I guess I've been kind of, you know, like going back and forth, or you know, during my studies, I mainly worked with figures or figurative references, or kind of like narrative elements in my works, or maybe kind of, you know, like often they were, also other people started to talk about, you know, like sort of like film stills, or that kind of, you know, like cinematic language. After my studies, I needed to kind of move towards more like clear abstraction. But at some point it felt interesting to quite like consciously take back these like figurative elements, and especially like clear reference to human figure. Or that was kind of, you know, like at least my attempt to work with it, you know, in a way that it would be more of this kind of like a mark-like element, and not so much like referring to this kind of narration, or sort of and referring to a character, or sort of, you know, like sort of like like a characters who is this person, or so. So it was it felt interesting for me to try to use it more as a kind of, you know, like coordinate to give a scale and these kind of, you know, like reference points to the painting, but more like work with other issues that you know, like interested me more, like kind of, you know, like the spatiality, or sort of like movement, or some sort of like open happening in the painting's space.
It's interesting to me, this human figure as a thing in artworks, not just like paintings. Maybe also because I studied photography as a master's before I came to Finland. And in photography, one of the main things in the classical understanding of the photography is the human figure. And there are still people who are very convinced that if there isn't a human figure in the shot, then what is this? And I was very much rebelling against that in my studies there. I was like, well, I'm not going to show the human figure then. If you think it's just that important, like I don't want to be constantly like a mirror. of the human showing the human, looking at the human. So in my works as an artist, I don't have any figures. Maybe because of that. I hadn't even thought about it.
But it is such kind of, like...
But I like this balance of like a semi-figure. It's not like full on classical etude, but you can see there's a figure, but there might not be if you don't pay that much attention to it.
Yeah, that's kind of, like what I'd like to sort of give this idea also maybe like to the viewer, like that why is it so instant for us to kind of, like read these like references to other human from, like it's really, even though it's just, like a, and of course we all know this kind of phenomenon, like that if there's just like two dots and some form, like you instantly see a face or so.
Keep Googling eyes, I think, different objects.
Yeah, exactly.
What is your favorite work of art of yours?
Oh God.
Or do you have one? I mean, you might not have one, I don't know.
Yeah, it feels like an impossible question.
Yeah.
Because I think there's kind of, like, of course there's some works that are more like maybe like dear to me, or sort of, like, but maybe like in the sense that through them or through that process or through that certain series of works, like kind of, like felt that I'm discovered some new kind of, like new opening or new direction, but yeah, but really can't kind of name a one. Maybe kind of maybe I should say the last ones that but I guess it's not, like because there's so different, really like so different phases in your artistic practice. So, and I think
they give you different things.
Yeah, and you maybe need some not so fruitful processes to go somewhere.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Really to discover something new and then, like something really interesting comes out of that or so. So I guess they're all important in a way, you could say.
You like all your children?
Yeah, that's a simpler way to describe it.
What are you doing now? What are your plans for the following months or something? Like, are you going to work on something specific or?
Well, I'm going to have a bit of a break of painting, I think. But I think it's also, like that when I have that kind of exhibition process going on, or maybe it's kind of, like a shared experience for artists, but it's just so intense and so crazy, and it's kind of, like that you really put all of yourself to it. So I kind of have to have a bit of a break. So I'm actually doing some other projects that next, like I'm planning to do a publication of my work, but I'll have to also a bit figure out the rest of the funding. But yeah, I'm planning of doing anyway some sort of a book, updated publication of my work, and then I'm going to have a residency next autumn in Copenhagen for 3 months. So that's one really nice upcoming thing.
Yeah, you mentioned funding. How do you sustain your practice?
Well, mostly grants. Luckily, I've been kind of. It has been times between, but but I've been lucky to have also like working grants, and then as a painter, it's also like maybe easiest to sell your work or so. So it's
I feel like it, yeah.
yeah. So of course that's also a huge help, you know, like that if you have some income from selling your work, so that might also like help, and then of course, you know, like every now and then some other works.
Have you had jobs like in the past that are something completely different from painting?
Yeah, well, okay, if we don't go back to my, you know, like while I was still studying, but yeah, it's kind of, you know, like, of course, some teaching, but not so much that it's really, that I haven't kind of, you know, like had that kind of like steady income from teaching. But it would be nice to do that more. But yeah, some really different, just like working in a store, or I also worked as a nanny, you know, like way back. But you know, like in the early years of my working as an artist, and what else? Yeah, earlier I did some illustrations too, but that's also, you know, like that was really fun, and of course it was so kind of, you know, like related to you know, like any of this kind of creative work, but it's of course also
Well, there
like
was still some value in illustrations, because nowadays that's done.
Yeah, that's true. And but anyway, it's kind of, you know, like that. Of course, it's also like competitive fields that you'd need to really focus on kind of, you know, like having this.
No, I'm asking this question to people usually because it still feels a bit of a taboo that people don't talk about their other side jobs that they had. Like, I'm pretty sure that if you're not inheriting a large amount of money or a mansion somewhere as an artist, you do have other jobs inevitably at some point in your practice. And I'm just kind of pushing to normalize that. Because for some reason people are a bit reluctant to talk about it. I mean, I don't think that diminishes your work as an artist.
No, absolutely.
Because sometimes you just have to do other jobs, and I have done other jobs, and I still do other jobs apart from my art practice, and I think that is completely a normal path to go. And that means Finland is very lucky in this domain that, you know, even if you don't have another job, you can still, you're not going to die. You're not going to be evicted from your place or something. But in the rest of the world, it's like super normal to have another job as an artist as well, even if you're a successful artist.
Yeah, true.
In many cases.
Yeah, because you have this kind of, you know, like, or at least we still have this quite amazing grant days. So
yeah,
of course that's kind of, you know, like,
even though it's being like dismantled a little bit lately, but
absolutely, yeah.
Hopefully things will get back to how they were before, or should be. Because there should be support for the arts for sure, public support. Because
but anyway, even though we have that, you know, like, of course it's kind of, you know, like, it is really normal to have other jobs. So you're right in that, you know, like, but it's maybe should be talked more openly.
Do you otherwise involve your friends or family in your art? I mean, apart from your collaboration with Jenni Toikka.
Well, yeah, I find it really important to have that kind of trusted colleague, friends with whom you can talk about your work, or at least for my practice, it's really important. You know, like, even though kind of, you know, like, it's just inviting someone here, and, you know, like, even though the other person wouldn't say anything, it's just maybe the act of kind of, you know, like, opening your door and showing what you have been working, and kind of, you know, like, mirroring it with, you know, like, another person's gaze, you know, like, I think that already helps you to kind of, you know, like, have some distance and realize some new approach. It's a great help if you can talk about your work with others. So at least in that sense, I do try to really like cherish this kind of a close kind of like colleague relationships. And of course, like I'm really happy to contribute to others, like in the same sense. I think we all like all need help.
Yeah. There's sometimes people who gather specifically in a group to do that. So that's great if you have that.
But like maybe I could kind of continue that. Like obviously, having Jenni as also like this collaborative partner is kind of like maybe clear that that she especially is really valuable. That sounds terrible to say valuable, but just like I really kind of like
valuable. It's like you appreciate a person.
Yeah, but it's kind of but yeah, I'm just like really appreciate her comments about my work, and of course like because she knows my practice so thoroughly. So I think she's one of the rare persons with whom I can kind of really share my thoughts about the kind of like what's just like what's the next step, or like what I'm planning, and kind of like I can trust that she understands what I'm talking about. So that's really great.
I have a friend who's a designer who I speak with about my work. It's really strange because she doesn't have exactly the same view as an artist would, but somehow when you find a person that is really easy to share your thoughts, that they're not going to judge you for it, or something, it's very helpful, even if they don't need to give you solutions to whatever you're wondering at the moment, but just like just sharing it is still helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of like break this bubble that you kind of like might have. At least I feel like that it's like when you really have an intense process going on, like it's kind of like it feels that you're really in your own bubble in your studio, and just like having someone over and sort of like offering this kind of like some sort of like intervention for just can be really fruitful.
Yes. How does it go for you, this process of creating your work usually? Do you have like stages that usually happen the same what do you say? Now I'm losing words.
There tends to be a pattern, but when I'm starting a new process, it's just it usually starts with just like going through pictures or just reading books, or sort of like just this kind of like.
Do you go with an idea first, or with a mood about the work?
Well, it can kind of like I think it kind of like also it depends in a way. Maybe like the last projects, like or the last big solos that I have had in with the gallery Helsinki Contemporary, they have had quite a sort of a sort of like an idea based like a starting point, or something that I could kind of name, or sort of that it has a reference, like my previous this previous exhibition that is still ongoing at the moment. There I kind of wanted to look back at those kind of like early quite groundbreaking experiences with art. I'm referring to for example Hugo Simberg and this kind of Finnish symbolism. And that kind of developed to this larger project of working with this kind of allegory idea or with the garden, but more as an allegory or a symbolistic approach to the garden theme. So in that sense, it's kind of, like, yeah, starting from the idea, but anyway, like I'd say that I'm so kind of like process-centered artist. So anyway, there's kind of, like unknown paths that you take from that. But I think like earlier I've had some exhibitions that I could say that it's more of just like it could be like a mood or it's just like certain kind of elements that just start to feel more and more intriguing like at the moment. So I guess it's just like essential to have some sort of impulse and then following the process. Also, like where it kind of.
Do you start with sketches or do you straight away paint?
Well, also like kind of both, but like if I have had a break from painting, I think it's just important to just paint something because it's just also you need to have that kind of like back to your body, the sort of like act of painting, and it's kind of inevitable that. The first ones don't work out, and you just have to kind of like go through that kind of period of just trying to warm up and trying to discover like the methods or sort of like the kind of visual language like.
So you sketch on the painting.
Yeah, but then like when the process advances, I also do some kind of like every now and then I do have some like sketches or some drawings, but it's maybe more at that stage when I can make more like kind of like really determined decisions, like that maybe I want to do like a variation of this work or sort of like that when I have enough body of works at the studio and it's more evident to me, like what I'm working with at that moment and where I want to take it.
Do you work on one painting at a time or on several?
On several, yeah, and because I work in series and I'm really interested in creating these kind of like references between the works and what kind of meanings the works kind of give to each other. And yeah, and especially like in this kind of exhibition whole, like my goal is to build this entity or the kind of like
so there is some sort of an invisible story between them that unites them.
Yeah, well, yeah, you can also say that, yeah. But anyway, it's kind of like that. I'm aiming for that the viewer, it can be kind of like just like subconscious feeling, but anyway, that there is this kind of a feeling that you're part of that sort of like cohesive world.
Yeah, this world building is a thing. Yes, even sometimes even for works and artists that don't like initially seem that they are going for that. It's somehow there is something about that. How does it go practically your process here when it comes to the studio? You have like say this new body of work to do. How do you work? Are you like a morning person? Are you a night owl? How does it go?
Yeah, I guess I used to be a night owl, like when I was younger. But yeah, nowadays it's more like these kind of office hours. So yeah, quite normal day job. But I think and also with age it feels that it's no use of staying in the studio for like round the clock, like a certain amount of hours per day that you can really work like with a good concentration. So because I think like when I was younger, I just just especially like with deadline approaching, I just did like crazy hours, but I don't. I try to be more reasonable nowadays.
How about your online presence? Do you pay attention to your online presence, like social media and such, or
Oh gosh.
you don't you don't have a website,
Yeah, yeah.
which is of course natural. But how about the social media part?
Well, yeah, I do have an Instagram account that I try to use, kind of, like more or less actively. But it took me a while to open that, and I think I was kind of, like trying to avoid of being in a social media. But I do understand the sort of like importance of it in sort of good today's. Yeah, of course it's a useful tool to inform about your work. And also, like as we were talking earlier about the feedback or sort of, like comments from the viewers. So there's of course also like a big change in that, like that when I kind of like didn't have any, or I do have some, like living dead Facebook account, but that I don't use. So, but anyway, I've just, like noticed, like that in Instagram, there seems to be, or it's quite maybe approachable to people to just like send DM and give some comments about the exhibition experience or so, which is of course nice. But I do have to say, like if I could just like choose, like that, maybe I kind of prefer to just like have my works speak for themselves. But that's I think it's like part of the deal.
Have you had like an Instagram or some other way, like some professional engagement through that? Somebody sees your work online and then approaches you and like, hey, I want to show your work, or I want to buy your work, or something like that through the online presence?
Well, maybe like some buyers, but yeah, of course also I'm like represented by a gallery, so and they are also like promoting, of course, like their artists, like in their page, so maybe I don't know, maybe it's not so easy to kind of like know what happens from what reasons, but I haven't had that kind of a sort of like a exhibition possibility that I would know would kind of like come from my Instagram account.
Yeah, no, maybe this just came to my mind to ask you, because I just got an email the other day from some other email.
Yeah.
So some weird name asking, oh, I saw your work and there, and I like asking me to buy my work. It sounds very scammy.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's real or not, but it just does not sound real.
Yeah.
And I know these things happen. At least I have a friend painter who that happened to. Like it was, I think they went quite far in the process of, okay, the person wants to buy your work, and then you almost send it, and then you realize this is a scam.
Yeah. There seems to be a lot of those cases. Yeah, I didn't. Well, I kind of didn't account those. Also, but yeah, definitely, I've also had those.
Yeah.
Those kind of messages, like that. Or yeah, I saw your website, and yeah, I want to purchase.
How do you? Is it easy to spot that? Is it a scam or not?
Well, I think some are easy, but maybe. Hopefully, I just kind of didn't, or I haven't just like ignored some
golden opportunity.
yeah. But and maybe okay. Well, I've been lucky to have that opportunity. That if there's that there has been some message that really I wasn't sure, so I kind of like asked. I replied and asked the person to contact my gallery, and so kind of like because anyway they are like they sell my work, so probably if it was a scam they wouldn't want to deal with that kind of like.
Yeah. Yeah, you have a way out.
Yeah.
You're probably the first artist that I talk with who is actually represented by a gallery here.
Oh, okay.
How does that happen in Helsinki, especially because I know there are not that many galleries who are actively representing an artist.
Yeah, there's just a few. First collaboration with them was in 2013. I was in a 3-person show. Well, it's kind of like group show. And yeah, well, I guess they just had been following, like what I have been doing and asked to take part in that show and then and yeah, made a contract with them afterwards. And so yeah, I've been kind of like working with them for more than 10 years now. So yeah, so that's kind of like also maybe gives this how do you say like a rhythm to my working. Like that every 2 or 3 years I have a solo show in the gallery. So that's like kind of like or gives the kind of like structure.
Do you often go to exhibitions otherwise? Not specifically there in Helsinki Contemporary, but like somewhere else?
Well, yeah, sure. I think that's kind of like, well, of course it's interesting in other ways too, but also like part of the work to kind of like see as much is going on and I think there's a lot of good exhibition places in Helsinki, even though it's not so big city. But yeah, and of course, like also then when I'm traveling, like that's that's
That's kind of
part of the program to see what is going on. But
do you prefer to go to the opening or to like some other day?
Well, there's so like different occasions. So I think like kind of it's so hard to see the exhibition like during the openings, but it serves other purposes. Or sort of it's nice to meet colleagues and it's a nice social gathering.
Go in the city.
We're usually to kind of like to what galleries or museums. Well, there's of course kind of like this convenient gallery district in the in the center. So like that if I'm like making a proper gallery tours, so it's quite easy to check those galleries at the same time. Like, well, of course, like there's Helsinki Contemporary and Anhava and Forsblom. But yeah, within the same like Sinne, and of course like the like Sinne is really a nice gallery, and then there's these unions galleries nearby, like Painters Union and Hippolyte and of course and Halmetoja also. So and then I've been really happy that there's more of this gallery district also in this Teurastamo area with Kohta and Bitter Dates. And and Sakari has been doing a really great job with that one also, that it's such an interesting new exhibition place and Huutogalleria and yeah. And it's good to remember to check what is going on in Siik, but that's in Malmi, a bit further away.
More of an effort to.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's
very close to the station, I have to say.
Yeah. So it's kind of like that. It's not so bad, like like actually, but yeah.
It's just mentally it feels far.
Yeah, if you don't have any other business in that direction, like so. Yeah, it's. Yeah, I have to admit, but it's they really have a good program, and I really like the exhibition space also. So it was really we were happy to present our work there too with Jenni.
What are some places of inspiration for you? Maybe physical spaces or other spaces.
I could say maybe like Italy in general. So
you can by all means say easily.
No, but it's also like I've been kind of I have this endless fascination in like especially the early Renaissance Italian art. So that but of course that's kind of like such like it's so endless in like what the kind of country provides in terms of inspiration. Like as a painter maybe especially, but
I mean, food can also be inspiring.
yeah, I agree with you. Totally. And just like the general atmosphere. Work inspiration can be just like, I don't know, go into a forest or just doing something else that can kind of like
Yeah, definitely.
reset your mind or just in terms of my like studio practice is it can be just like going through going through books or just like reading material or sort of like I guess it's just kind of it's so it depends like what you're working with that like that what kind of seems relevant to try to sort of or where to turn your gaze to in terms of some new inspiration.
Yeah. And by saying Italy, is it also traveling part of that, or is it specifically only Italy?
Well, for sure traveling. Even though we of course should kind of like avoid traveling more and more. But yeah, I have to admit that I'm kind of like feel that it's just to be able to spend time somewhere else. And especially working in residencies, it has been like super important for me to in order to kind of reinvent my practice.
What would be some artists that you like their work and follow currently? Because I know that also changes with time.
Yeah.
But like at the moment, I'm asking everybody, and I'm making a list on the website of the podcast.
Oh, okay.
That's why I'm asking you as well.
Yeah, this is like one of those questions that I kind of like it's why does it so often happen that it's kind of like hits you by surprise, so sort of like that.
Yeah,
Why now I can't think of. This of course, like that. There's like that. For example, I have this and dear gallery colleagues. For example, like I was just talking with Hans Rosenström the other day, and he's having a new works for the Helsinki Biennale and also for his solo in Helsinki Contemporary in June, and I'm really looking forward of experiencing them. But yeah, so it's just kind of like that. Who kind of like who have been in my mind recently. So kind of like for example these kind of examples. But I think like in terms of my own practice, I feel so like empty at the moment. So I'm just kind of like that. But of course I could kind of think of some, but
it doesn't even have to be a live artist. It can be somebody who was living many centuries ago or something like that, like who has made an impression.
During this last process, I did research again on Hugo Simberg's work and Axel Kallela also, and then like I mentioned, like for example, Fra Angelico and Giotto and these Italian masters are this kind of like never-ending inspiration. Also, and it's kind of like, but it's also part of this my interest of trying to consciously work with the long tradition of investigation of spatiality and perception and presence of painting, even though it might not be so apparent in my works. Maybe
it doesn't have to be at all. Like
but it's kind of like, so maybe that's important part of my working for me in a way to kind of have that ongoing research.
Thank you so much
Well, thank you
for this nice talk, and have a nice vacation or a time of just relaxation.
Thank you. I think I need it.
Yeah, and good luck with the residency after that.
Okay, thank you so much.